Thanks so much, Kate, for joining today on the Visible podcast. Before we get into it, tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? And how did you end up building a content agency specifically for B2B tech?
Yeah, sure. My name is Kateryna. I run Zmist Copy. It's a content marketing agency focused primarily on quality content, on creating quality content. So we actually take care of positioning, strategy, and content production. I started my journey back in 2013 when I got hired to as a writer to a software development company. So I stayed there for like 4 years, jumping from just a writer to chief marketing officer. And when I left the company, they had increased in size like 3 times. When I started working with them, they were like 30 people. When I left, it was just over 100. And then I started another agency. It was more on the SEO side, more SEO focused. It was called Kayaks. And I had a co-founder who was building it with me. But after like another 4 years, 4 or 5 years. So we parted ways and I just decided to reopen a new agency, which I called Zmist Copy. So, which I currently run. It's actually the third year.
Nice, amazing journey. So you mentioned you started an SEO agency. So currently at Smith and Copy, are you currently only doing content or also the SEO strategy?
Well, we do SEO strategy, but we are not SEO experts. So we're not like focused specifically on SEO. We actually position ourselves as like, not like an anti-SEO, but a little bit different from most SEO firms because we don't really like some common approaches used in the industry, in the tech industry when it comes to SEO. So we know how to create a strategy for SEO. We know how to track where you are, how to check your visibility and what influences that, but we are not specifically an SEO agency. We actually often collaborate with SEO experts on our client side or with SEO agencies even.
So this brings me to my next question. Like B2B tech companies often treat positioning and search visibility as two separate work streams, right? One team often figures out the messaging and another does the content writing blog posts, case studies, product pages. You start with positioning before any content gets written. Why is that?
Exactly.
And how does that foundation change what the content can actually do for a brand?
Well, it was boring because of my experience working with companies. Because normally when you start working with a company, when things don't work out, it usually traces back to problems in their positioning. Especially right now when there is AI search, and to be visible in AI when somebody asks a question on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and they want to appear in those answers, and they need to be very specific about who they target and what they specifically do. Like they need to be even narrow in their positioning. The problem that I see often, like almost, 90% of cases, is that companies are very broad. They have a pretty vague understanding of their target audiences, or they have like a very broad audience. They say like, we work with a bunch of different companies and we can provide value to all of them, which can even be true, but you cannot win fast in marketing without a lot of investments if you take that broad strategy. That's why when we start working with clients, we first figure out what makes them different, what exact ICP they have. Like ICP is a very narrow thing by definition. It's not, you cannot have you can have 10 ICPs, of course, but you need to position yourself like to win at least something at first. You need to position yourself on a very specific market and then build a content strategy around that and get results. And then if it works out and this audience seems too narrow to you, then you can proceed and maybe broaden a little bit. That's how it started. So I started seeing this problem, and I thought that we could actually help companies in that. And this actually went pretty well. Right now, we are like most of our engagements start with positioning.
Right, Kate, you made a very good point about really nailing that positioning and writing specific content. So what I've noticed is that when a buyer asks these LLMs, for example, what's the best project management tool for a 20% remote engineering team? Now, the LLM has to pick from hundreds of options, and the brand that gets recommended tend to be ones with the clearest positioning around that exact use case, and also have that branding element work in its benefit. For example, they have more brand mentions across third party sources, and the bigger the brand, the more benefit you eventually have anyways. But do you think that positioning clarity is becoming a direct input into whether LLMs recommend your clients?
Yes, because that's what I mean, it's important to understand positioning first for yourself, for your team, so that everybody tells the same story whenever they meet a client, whenever they describe what they do. But then you document that positioning on your homepage and you create the website structure from there. And everything on your website goes back to that positioning. And when you have this structure figured out and it's well thought out, and then in all your articles, in all your content, in all your LinkedIn posts, you essentially tell the same story, then it really works out. Actually, by the way, you made an example with project management tools. Right now we have a lead. He's not our client still yet, but we've been talking. That's actually the exact problem. So the company has a project management tool, and they say project management is such a broad field. Like, how many competitors do you have? And the client says, like, we have more than 300 competitors. Exactly. And how are you going to win? Because there are very, very big dominant players on that market. In that case, you need to position yourself very narrowly. This is the only way.
Yeah, that's an issue that usually comes up with broad categories like project management or field service. Now, my next question for you is that your content starts with expert interviews, right? And I believe the quality of content depends on the quality of these interviews. So, what's your process, if you can share with all the viewers, for designing questions that pull out something truly unique? Because the kind of insight or framework or data point that only your clients could share. And how do you recognize when you have hit one of those moments versus when you're just getting generic answers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sure, whatever we do in content marketing, we always start with interviews. Even when we figure out positioning, that's like 2-month exercise where we have weekly calls with the whole team. We try to figure out what we do, and all the company stakeholders are present there, like not only the founder and CEO, but also marketing manager, sales, head of sales, head of delivery, head of technology. And the thing is, when you're through with this exercise, you know them pretty well. So it actually makes your following steps much easier because you already know what this company does differently. Sometimes they need help branding that, if I can say that. For example, they have a specific approach and they see that it's different because for one, we analyze competitors when we do positioning. For two, we also have a lot of experience in the technology field, so we know how it works. And we can understand when some company does it very differently. So the only thing for us right now is just to try to wrap it into something that can be sold generally in content. It's creating some framework, some call it signature IP, like some name for that approach or for that framework that is going to be unique and is going to differentiate that company in content. But when you do the interviews, because you still have to do a lot of interviews, especially with time when it's not like the first months that you've been working with the client, it's very important to come to the call prepared. You need to know what you want, what you the final result you want. You need to understand what you want to get at the end of it. But you also need to leave room for free expressions. I mean, you need to call it like a conversation, not like an interrogation, not like a Q&A session. Because this is the mistake many writers make. They prepare, they create a list of questions. I have been on such calls with other writers who didn't work for us. But so what they did, they actually shared the screen and they would just go through every question with the person they've been interviewing. And the person just keeps concentrated on these questions and they don't have even, I don't know, they can go somewhere else. They can tell you a story, like some unexpected story. And this is wrong because you still don't understand, you still can't be in their shoes, essentially. So you need to leave room for some unexpected things. And you need to ask for a lot of examples. This is very important. Like whenever you say, I don't know, what usually happens, for example, a question, when you have this and that problem to solve, what is the common way, what are the common assumptions that clients have about this problem that are wrong? And they need to give you specific examples. If you have the specific examples, that's what makes your content unique. Or you can even ask them to tell specific stories, like tell me about something like that happened this month, or maybe last month, something that you remember. It's very good also to ask for questions that are a little bit, how to say it, a little bit negative, maybe not even negative, like something that they don't like. Like, what do you hate about, I don't know, about clients looking at that problem? Like, what exactly just do you always come through and you don't support it? And when you get answers to these questions, that's what makes content interesting and even emotional.
Yeah, this was so insightful, Kate. What I've also seen is that story-driven narratives makes your content very insightful and memorable because people eventually resonate with people and stories and the problems that they faced and how exactly they solved it. Another point that I took away from this was that framework naming thing because it instantly makes your content more shareable. So if you have a process or whatever, if you can name it, that one it is, yes, it becomes more memorable, but it also becomes very easy to share and refer to when, let's say, talking with a colleague or someone else.
Yes, exactly.
So something I've seen on the AI search side is that when you build content from sales call analysis, from how your ICP actually describes their problem, and the content that shows up more in LLM responses, that specific content basically shows up more in LLM responses because real buyers don't type stuff like what is the best field service management software. It's more like we are a 30% team. We are currently using spreadsheets. We want a field service management software that integrates with QuickBooks and has built-in route optimization, something like that. They're giving more context based on their situation, their tool stack, and their constraint. And that specificity can only come with sales call analysis. And again, have you seen this play out with the content that you produce as well?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we've been seeing that a lot. And actually, what else I wanted to say is that for AI search right now, the thing that everybody right now cares about it, and what does everybody want? They want to be cited. To be cited, you need to have something unique in your content. The best way to create that uniqueness is to build a report where you, because it requires a lot of effort. It requires you to go to people, to talk to them, to gather the replies. And this is very unique. But also, if you're not ready to invest into reports, you can even create a regular blog post that talks about like even how to do something. But in it, you describe your approach. You include your stories, you include your specific approaches, your named frameworks, all this signature IP that makes you citable. And then when somebody asks a specific question, and the AI can cite those things that if they are described well. They can say, for example, in this company, they have a thing called, I don't know what, I don't know, some name of the framework. And this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what I mean where I say, named frameworks. It just we are all looking to create uniqueness, because uniqueness right now, it's not enough just to be to use a anti-plagiarism tracking tool to see how much content you've copied. You need to have something actually unique there.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned being cited. I've always been vocal about the difference between, let's say, being cited and recommendation. The LLMs actually recommending your brand as a solution to the problem or the query the searcher is typing in. So, is that a differentiation you make with clients, or do you consider that?
Yes, of course. It all contributes. It all compounds with time, because of course you want to be mentioned for consideration stage queries. Like, what is the best company for that? In that case, to be citable, you need to you need to be specific about your positioning. It all compounds, as I've been saying. You need to have that positioning nailed on your homepage. You need to have the blog posts that speak the same about the same pain. You need to have landing pages describing all that. And and that's how you get citable. I mean, you get citable even when people ask some questions which are not like when they are not on the consideration stage, but let's say on the awareness stage, they just like researching something maybe, and you get cited. And that's the same way where, I mean, it all compounds. What can I say? I believe that this is the right approach to content today.
Right. And Kate, when the goal is to write highly differentiated content that stands out in AI search, where do you think AI is genuinely useful in the production process and where do you draw the line?
Yeah, it's also a great question. So AI is great in helping you build briefs, but only if you have enough context, if you've fed it enough context. Previously, everybody was talking about prompting, right? Like prompt engineering was a thing even a year ago. Right now, it's no longer about prompt engineering, it's about context engineering. So when you have engineered context, and what is engineered context? It's actually all that positioning, the target audience, the ICPs, the insights from the sales calls, all of that is the context. Once your, let's say, Claude project knows about that, then and your strategy as well. Like if you have like a well-documented strategy that describes who you are, what you do, what you want to achieve, what exactly you're going to communicate, what messages are important for you, and you feed it into AI, and then whenever you need to write something and you just need a brief first, you need to work on the brief, on an outline, and it can help you pretty well here. Can also help you with research, of course. For example, Claude Code is pretty good at gathering information on the internet, like crawling and stuff. Like, for example, if you need to pull insights from forums, from Reddit, not Reddit because it can crawl Reddit. Last time I tried, but some other forums where people share their opinions about this and that, and can organize it in a table, and then you can draw insights from that table. That's great as well. So research, briefs, what else? Well, maybe some rewrite, some rephrasing when you are stuck with ideas how to express this or that. And you can, of course, that's what actually, this is my top use case for AI since it started, since it appeared. But where AI cannot substitute you, it's actually the real stories, the real experience, something that makes you you and not a robot, something that some unique angle that you want to describe. Like you can have the piece written in AI voice, let's say, but if you have an interesting insight, it can still work. I mean, I actually hate seeing all this AI generated posts. I get triggered because I know the specific phrases AI uses in the specific constructions. But if there is some interesting idea there, it can still work. I mean, and that idea comes from your thought, like not from AI. When you want to add a specific angle there, and you know how to approach that, you don't just approach the brief, just like write a brief about this and that. Write a brief about this and that. But here's what I think is the most important that we need to focus on in that brief. That's what cannot be substituted by AI. And of course, editing cannot be substituted by AI, even though there are a lot of like humanizers, right? Like tools that humanize your AI writing. Actually, this is funny, but my sister tried to write like a couple of weeks ago. She tried to write an article. She wrote an article using ChatGPT. She gave it to me to read. It was an interesting article because she knows what she wants to say, but it's the way it was written, it was very, very triggering that it was AI. I tell to her, you need to do a lot of edits there. And she just tried a humanizer. She produced another draft and she gave it to me to read. She said, I just did it with Grammarly humanizer. I reread that draft and I say, actually, this thing looks even worse than the first draft. I mean, it's not so triggering in terms of AI, but it's way weaker. So it's interesting. And I think it's only a human being can edit stuff produced by AI.
Yeah, very well put together. I personally love Claude. I always have it open, but again, like you mentioned, it's only useful if you have that expertise to differentiate between what's good and what's bad. And you talked about content brief. I actually have a built-in content brief skill where the human in the loop flow is very important, where if I ask it to create a content brief, it uses the skill that I've created in the back end. That includes the keyword, customer journey stage, search intent, target ICP, the SERP analysis that done. But it also asks me specifically if you have a unique angle or if you have interviewed, let's say, a subject matter expert which you want to add, and then based on that it runs that skill. So that again is really important, like you have already mentioned.
Yeah. Actually, we do have in our agency, we have a bunch of skills, including brief skill.
Yeah,
Actually, it's one of the things that makes work fun because I mean, skills is something that you can reuse, you can improve, and you can always upgrade. And this is the most important, the most exciting thing that
Yes.
exists in Claude, I guess.
Yes, that's also how you can really leverage it, because if you're repeating a task on a weekly basis, that's where AI is most useful. If you know how to set it up properly and then you can continuously improve it, then you can really extract the most benefits out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so producing hyper-specific content at scale requires writers who can extract and translate expert knowledge, right? That's a rare skill. And most content writers are trained to research a topic on Google and synthesize and summarize what already exists, which is the process that produces generic content. And you've built a great team, obviously, at your agency. How do you find and train these writers who can do the opposite at your agency and produce quality, differentiated content?
This is the hardest question for a content agency, I would say, because guys that I work with, we've been working for a few years together. I actually haven't hired anybody recently. And well, I think I will have to start hiring people eventually, but it's the hardest thing to do in all my years running a business, because I mean, the people you find, they are not trained. I mean, I think this is just my vision. It's a little bit biased maybe, but I think that SEO culture has made a very bad impact on the market of writers. Because whenever you find a writer who has experience writing and they have been writing before AI appeared, but the way they wrote and the way they're writing right now, it's bad. I mean, it's not the level of content that I want to publish. I mean, they couldn't do it well before AI. They do it maybe a little bit better right now with AI, because at least it makes their writing a little bit more polished. But still, there are no like unique thoughts. I mean, there is like this popular opinion on the market that AI has worsened content. Actually, it improved content, because if you look at the market of writers, and the stuff writers produced before AI was way worse. Most writers, they were great writers, of course, but great writers is always a very, very rare thing to find. So the team that I have, they happen to be, I wouldn't say that like they originally were all perfect writers. No, but with time, when you work with them, when you just like educate them, you train them on how work needs to be done, they improve a lot. And since like all these years, my team has done very, very great, like upgrade, has upgraded itself very, very much. I mean, but it's always hard because it's very time consuming, especially for me. We have even like we have an editor in house and everything, but I need to control some pieces, like the quality of work all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's about spotting the baseline skill required at one's internal agency and then eventually working with them to continuously improve so that you can create better and better content for your clients.
Exactly. We so I often compare like it's a very difficult thing, like in general, training people. Actually, right now, I've been thinking like new writers who just entering the market, and they of course are going to use AIs. They do not have this kind of experience doing it without AI, and that's going to be a challenge because you don't like I don't know, you can be junior in this AI era. You need to start. I mean, AI of course helps you level up to mid-level writer, maybe senior level writer pretty fast, I guess, but it depends on what you define as middle level and senior level writer. But that's the problem, I guess, because even if you just think about like new jobs and how people without experience are going to get a job, and they're going to perform much worse than people who have experience in the pre-AI era. And right now they are much better performing with AI. And you compare them to newcomers, and it's a big question for now.
Yeah, and this sort of tracks back to a saying that I keep seeing on LinkedIn, which is that AI accelerates what you already are. So if you are very skilled and a great writer, you would be able to do more with AI while still maintaining the same quality. And if you are very generic or, let's say, per definition, not a great writer, you are going to sort of accelerate that AI slop writing a lot.
That's the problem, yes.
Yep. So every company has AI tools now, Kate, and volume is basically free. So what's the new bare minimum for content that's actually differentiated, and how teams can hit that bar at a reasonable scale when clients' budgets are shrinking and expectations are continuously growing?
Yes, you need to create a strategy, which is also, you can call it a minimum viable strategy. I mean, there is also a common belief that to perform well on SEO now in AI search, you need a lot of content. Well, you need content, but it's a question whether you need a lot of content or how much content you need. You might need not so much content. That's the thing. So in order to work to get results without invest in much, you need to be very specific about what you publish and how you're going to distribute it. If you don't have an answer to the question how you're going to distribute it, maybe it's better not to write it at all. And you need to have a very well-weighted balance between what you can create and what can generate results. So you need to be very strategic about that. It can be very few pieces for the start, but very well positioned, very unique. You need to analyze. I mean, you need to do all the stuff that we did before. Analyze what your competitors write. Try to figure out what uniqueness you can bring there. Try to understand the trade-offs. For example, if you want to invest in the report, and it can take you more than 3 months, then at the beginning, maybe it's not something that you need to show results right away. So maybe you need to start with something less time consuming and but not like, I would never suggest you to cover as many keywords as it is possible, so that maybe one of these keywords is going to start ranking. That's not how it works anymore. It actually didn't work even before, unless you had big budgets on link building. But right now, it's even more important. So you need to be very specific and limited, I'd say.
Yeah, Kate. And do you primarily focus on bottom of funnel content, or do you also write content on, let's say, top and middle of funnel content? Middle of funnel.
We don't have such division. Let's say we just know what we need to be able to rank. Like, we know the position, we know the audience, and then we start to, like, of course, the priority is always bottom of the funnel. That's where we start. Like, it's an inverted pyramid, let's say, something like that. I mean, we don't start with top of funnel content, but top of funnel content can happen as well. It just depends on how you write it, because normally educational content is not something somebody needs anymore, because you get this education from AI chat, yeah, or when you type into Google something and you get AI answer, so it answers all your questions. But you can still create some kind of educational content with your specific frameworks, just to explain your approach, or to create some controversial pieces. The market thinks that, we think this, and you explain why. And this is the very important piece of content that builds your brand authority, because it differentiates your brand. You say something that nobody else is saying. It can be considered as top of funnel content, but you still need it because it's very important for your positioning. So we create that as well. But when we start working, of course, we want results as fast as possible. So we start at the bottom.
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of people discard top of funnel content, and for the right reasons. I understand where they're coming from. Again, you hit the nail on it, said that it's usually a good idea to start with bottom of funnel content because that's where you see the highest ROI. But I still suggest my clients to focus on top, start at the bottom of funnel and then move up. Like, if you are a new category, top of funnel content still helps educate the reader. Specifically, if you have very useful frameworks, genuine frameworks that can help your ICP. And if you have a very strong distribution, a very strong newsletter, that is a very good distribution channel to for top of funnel content as well.
Yes, exactly. Distribution is very important. Actually, right now we even we have content packages that have distribution built in. So the more you appear on other websites, even on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on your own like owned media, the more you're going to get results from that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wrap, kid. If you got value from this, subscribe wherever you are listening, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.